with early results pointing to a big win for Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's ruling coalition in Sunday's lower house election. Supporters may celebrate what appears to be a clear path to policy dominance. After vote counting began, exit polls and media projections suggested the ruling bloc could capture more than two-thirds of the 465-seat lower house, dashing the hopes of fledgling opposition forces. The news may leave many wondering what's in store for Japanese politics. Abe appeared set to emerge with a stronger power base, possibly allowing him to win a third term as president of the Liberal Democratic Party in a leadership contest next September that would, in turn, see him extend his term as prime minister. He would also find himself in a better position to push for his long-time political goal of revising the pacifist constitution, as a win on the scale projected would give the ruling bloc, together with other pro-revision parties, the power to set such a change in motion. To initiate a national referendum on any constitutional revision, support of more than two-thirds of the lower house is required, a rare status the Abe coalition appeared likely to maintain after Sunday's vote. Under such a scenario, Abe might formally propose a national referendum during the regular Diet session starting in January. The situation, however, may not be as rosy as pro-Abe Diet forces have envisioned. Polls have suggested built-up frustration with Abe's government, and the nation remains sharply divided over a proposal to revise the war-announcing Article 9 to define the status of the self-defense forces. According to an opinion poll conducted by the liberal Asahi Shimbun on Tuesday and Wednesday, 51% of 1,574 respondents said they do not want Abe to continue as prime minister, while 34% said they did. The poll, standing in stark contrast with Sunday's election results, suggested that many voters cast their ballots for the LDP due to the lack of a clear alternative. The LDP and Abe can win big on Sunday and still lose if the combined proportional vote for Party of Hope and CDP is higher than the total of the LDP, Michael Kuchek, adjunct professor of political science at Temple University's Japan campus, said on Thursday. He was referring to Kibo no to Party of Hope, led by Tokyo Gov. Yuriko Koike, and the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan, led by former Democratic Party heavyweight Yukio Edano. You can have a situation where Abe can have a two-thirds majority in both houses and be seen as unpopular and unstable, he said during a news conference at the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. The abrupt emergence of Kibo no to late last month ended up splitting the opposition, despite some initial hope that the movement would herald a united front. This provided major leverage for LDP candidates running in the 289 single-seat district, where only one candidate is chosen as a winner. In most of the single-member constituencies, you have multiple opposition candidates running against one LDP candidate, political analyst Tobias Harris said at the FCCJ news conference. This is one of the reasons any LDP win could be called victory by default, he said. Of course, opposition forces are likely to face much of the blame for their own poor performances. Before and during election campaigning, the parties did not espouse clear economic or social welfare policy proposals that could challenge those of Abe's government. Instead, they focused on hammering away at Abe's government over alleged cronyism involving school operators Moritomo Gakuen and Keiki Gakuen. The strategy failed to garner support from voters, who have traditionally prioritized issues like jobs and the economy in major elections. Still, the lack of support for the opposition does not necessarily mean strong support for all of Abe's political initiatives. The same Asahi poll from last week showed that 37% supported Abe's proposal to revise Article 9, with 40% opposed. The result shows that the nation is sharply split over the issue, although Abe has clearly backed away from the more drastic revision proposed by the LDP in 2012. In the 2012 draft, the LDP called for allowing Japan to fully exercise the right of collective self-defense as defined under the United Nations Charter, drastically expanding the legal scope for joint military operations with ally the United States. But in May this year, Abe proposed that the article only be revised to clearly define the status of the SDF, which he says would not change the nation's exclusively defense-oriented policy. Media polls have suggested for years that a majority of respondents trust the SDF and consider it constitutional, despite the fact that Article 9 says land, sea, and air forces, as well as other war potential, will never be maintained. Abe made his revised proposal apparently considering the public's high level of confidence in the SDF. In the end, a national referendum, not a numbers game in the Diet, will determine the fate of Article 9, something Abe himself has repeatedly emphasized. To revise any article, a referendum must have the support of more than half of voters. Polls, however, have suggested that about half of the nation's voters are reluctant to support revision. Some may be concerned that the move would give more momentum to political forces trying to deny the value of Japan's post-war diplomacy. In my view, making the SDF constitutional must not mean a denial of the post-war history of Japan. Critic and novelist Hiroki Azuma was quoted as saying in an interview published by HuffPost Japan earlier this month, "If you just look at the proposed text of the article, it may look good on the surface, but I don't think the underlying values that come with Abe's proposal will lead to a bright future for Japan," Azuma maintained.